Great. It's remarkable to see the variety of ways that artists are approaching portraiture. We see sculpture, painting, photographs, video portraits, and it's an extraordinary way to understand what's happening with the genre of portraiture and what issues artists are grappling with in their exploration of identity.
Please welcome Dorothy Moss from the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery.
Boys, 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 said my 5-year-old daughter, Lucille, as she walked with me through the first floor corridor of the National Portrait Gallery. I had recently taken my job there. This was 4 years ago. And she said, "Mama, this is a boy's place. This is for James," her brother. "I want to go home." Well, I was stopped in my tracks. I was so proud to be showing her where I work. And I was looking at the portraits in terms of outstanding, remarkable examples of American portraiture by artists such as Gilbert Stuart, Charles Willson Peale, Thomas Sully. Yet Lucille made me aware of something that I'm sure others have experienced as they walked through that corridor. Where was she on the walls? Where was her connection? She was not alone in that, and I was determined from that moment on to make sure that every visitor who walks through our doors finds him or herself in some connection to their family's history. It's the Smithsonian. This is a place for all of us, and the National Portrait Gallery is where we should all be able to find our story. So how do we make visible absence? As you might know, portraiture, commissioned portraiture specifically, in the 18th and 19th century was an elite activity available to the social, economic, and political elite of this country. And that means mostly white men who were able to vote and held land. So how do we make visible absence? The Portrait Gallery is working hard on this, and through several contemporary art initiatives, we are doing just that. We are expanding the narratives we tell and becoming more inclusive. We've introduced performance art to our programming. We have a dance choreographer in residence, Dana Tysoon Burgess, who creates performances based on our exhibitions. And we have the Outwin Bootcheaver Portrait Competition, which I'm very proud to direct. This triennial competition is open to artists 18 years and older, living and working in the United States, though not necessarily United States citizens. It is open to all media, from textiles to performance art to video art to more traditional media such as drawing and painting. What I find most exciting about this competition and the resulting exhibition is that the work has to have been made within a 3-year period. So what we see in the entries are what people are thinking about across the nation and what we're all grappling with. Issues such as Black Lives Matter, aging, homelessness, the fragility of childhood in our increasingly complex age. We really see what's on the pulse of the nation in these entries, and it is one of our most beloved exhibitions. It was the gift of Virginia Outwin Bootcheaver, a 20-year docent at the National Portrait Gallery who believed in the power of portraiture to transform lives. She loved history and biography and the convergence of the two in portraiture, and she wanted to promote the art of portraiture and make artists feel at home in the National Portrait Gallery. The exhibition is so exciting. The ways that artists are approaching identity through materials such as wood. One artist entered a full-length sculpture made of rice to explore her Asian American identity. It is so fascinating to see the various approaches to portraiture. The first prize winner is commissioned to make a portrait for our permanent collection. In 2013, the first prize winner was an artist named Bo Gehring, who at 70 years old turned his attention away from his career as an engineer and developed a new way of making video portraiture, where he asked the subject to lie down on a bed and choose a piece of music that means something. very significant to them. And then he takes a video camera and films them from below their feet to above their head in time with the music to capture their emotional response to music over time. This is a fascinating, innovative way to make a portrait. He was chosen to portray Esperanza Spalding, the Grammy-winning musician, for his commissioned portrait. And here you see her in the process of having her portrait made. I want to show you a clip of this portrait. It's not the full portrait, but I can show you a piece of it to give you a sense of what this kind of portrait is about. You will see a level of detail that the eye could never see in motion through what he does. Esperanza chose a 1974 recording of Tarde by Wayne Shorter to listen to. Wayne Shorter is her mentor, and she wanted to honor him with this portrait. The jury, thank you, it's an amazing portrait. The jury process for this competition is highly competitive. In 2016, we had over 2,500 artists enter, and 43 were selected as finalists. Art handlers go out across the country and pick up the semifinalists' work, bring it in a truck back to Washington, and we meet with our selected jury panel, experts from across the country, to select the finalists. We spend a lot of time debating and discussing what it means to explore identity through portraiture and how artists could be most effective at that. It's fascinating to have these discussions, and it's like a mini seminar on portraiture and the exploration of identity. Artists enter at all different stages of their careers. Some artists are at the height of their careers, like John Ahearn, who has been written into the history of American art for his socially engaged approach to portraiture. He's best known for his 1970s project, South Bronx Hall of Fame, where he made plaster casts of members of the South Bronx community. He would keep one cast to place in the art world and give another cast to the community to remain there to bridge this divide between some communities and the museum world. Here he is with his son, turning his son into Superman. Other artists are at the height of their career, but not quite at that point where they've reached global recognition. And one of those artists is Cedric Huckabee. Cedric is from South Fort Worth, Texas. He got a scholarship to receive his MFA at Yale, and his professors there said, Cedric, you need to move to New York. You can make it in the art world. But he said, absolutely not. I need to go back to my community, back to my family. That's where I derive inspiration. And I want to use my art as social activism. So Cedric teaches, and he goes around the country speaking about how art can transform communities. The most important person in his life was his grandmother, Big Mama. And after he teaches all day and tends to his children, he goes to the house that she used to live in, and he is turning that into a community center. I had the chance to see Big Mama's house, and it is so moving. He stripped the walls down. You can see layers of paint and wallpaper. All the memories in that house come to life, and he brings the community in for conversation and dialogue, for art projects, and for healing. Here he is in one of the rooms with a massive portrait of his daughter. One day, former President George W. Bush walked into the Valley House Gallery in Dallas and saw Cedric's work on the wall. He said, "I have got to meet this painter. I need to learn how to paint like this." So he contacted Cedric. Now, as you can imagine, Cedric was a bit surprised, but he met with former President Bush, and they started a working relationship that is actually really touching and quite remarkable. If you know of former President Bush's current project, Portraits of Courage, where he is painting veterans who have returned from war, Cedric was his instructor during that process. And I had the opportunity to visit with former President Bush in Dallas after I did an interview one evening with Cedric. And President Bush said, "You know, Cedric has taught me to see the world differently. He speaks of painting as prayer, and that has been a wonderful experience for me to be part of his world and part of his approach to painting." So here you see President Bush in the Bush Center with his current exhibition, and Cedric Huckabee there by his side with Cedric's children. And this is a portrait that Cedric made of former President Bush in his studio. Our third prize winner for the 2016 competition was Joel Daniel Phillips from Oakland, California. Joel makes life-size sketches of the homeless people around his studio in Oakland. He says these are the people who we don't even make eye contact with, and by making their portraits in full length, he restores their humanity. I went to his studio, and homeless people were coming in and out, leaving things, sitting down for a cup of tea, and being heard. He remains friends with these men and women, and it's remarkable to see the dynamic between them. Joel Daniel Phillips said it was deeply moving to see this portrait of Eugene just steps away from the National Portrait Gallery's America's Presidents Gallery. Our second prize winner was Cynthia Hennebrey from Virginia. Cynthia actually grew up in Washington, D.C., and she said that she saw this little girl, Mavis, sitting in the back seat of her parents' car as she was picking up her own children from carpool, and she suddenly thought of that backseat world of the child versus the front seat world of the adult, and thought she could capture that spirit of childhood, all that imagining and daydreaming that goes on in the back seat. The jury loved this portrait for that deep blackness contrasted with the light over the little girl Mavis's face and that complicated expression. The first prize winner was Amy Sherald from Baltimore, Maryland. The jury was stunned by this portrait. Amy's use of color and design, the surreal details such as that outsized teacup, that red chrysanthemum hat, and the gray skin tone, that was intriguing. But most of all, it was that expression on the young woman's face, such self-confidence and assuredness. We couldn't take our eyes off of this portrait. Amy Sherald talks about growing up in Columbus, Georgia, and attending a small private school. She has very light skin, and she said she never felt any racial tension. She never noticed she was any different as she was growing up. But then she went to Baltimore to study at MICA, the Maryland Institute College of Art, and she pursued her MFA there under abstract expressionist painter Grace Hardigan. When she got to Baltimore, she said she had never felt such racial tension in her life, and she wanted to do something about it. Amy is an activist, like so many of the artists who entered this competition. She started teaching art in the prison system in Baltimore, and she started working with her community, with children, with anyone she could find who wanted to talk about art and bridge divides through art. She says she creates images of African Americans that project a positive view and a self-confidence and self-assuredness, like in her portrait, Miss Everything. What we didn't realize about Amy when we selected her as first prize winner is that she is a story of resilience. Amy had a heart transplant several years ago and almost died. And she said the whole time she was in the hospital, she kept thinking of getting back to the studio, that that's how she would keep going, that she knew once she got back to the studio, she would be okay, and she had an important message to deliver to the American people. I have to say, Amy is one of these people who you'll never forget when you meet her. I love that she is so focused on transforming the world through her images, through her portraits. And I can't wait for the unveiling of her commissioned portrait, which will be announced next year. Join me in viewing a few other examples of the remarkable portraits that were finalists in the 2016 competition. The exhibition is traveling for the first time, and it is now in South Texas at Corpus Christi's Art Museum of South Texas. It was so moving to see Rigoberto Gonzalez from Harlingen, Texas, near the border of Texas and Mexico, talk about this portrait of his friends crossing the border. Issues of immigration, of homelessness, of hospice care, all of these issues are so important to all of us and need to be addressed, but they need to be addressed from the perspective of human experience, and that's what these portraits do. My little daughter, Lucille, no longer thinks that the National Portrait Gallery is just for boys, and neither does my son, James. Recently, Amy Sherald gave a gallery talk at the Portrait Gallery, and I witnessed something really amazing. A little girl came up to her in awe of her, so happy to meet the artist, and said, "I wonder why you painted this. Why did you paint this portrait?" Amy crouched down and looked at her and said, "I painted it for you, so that when you come into a museum, you'll see yourself on the wall." Wow. Thank you.